fans, this is Dustin J. Marquez coming to you taped, as always, from the gem along the Colorado River, Laughlin, Nevada, bringing you yet another edition of your favorite bowling show, Bowling Evolved. Join me, as always, is my partner in crime. He's a millionaire in the PBA Tour, and we call him Silk because he's just so smooth. Ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Eric Forkel. Eric, how you doing tonight?
Who, me? Oh, well, I'm doing okay. As long as I get to speak to you, I'm doing great. How could I not be? How could I? I've talked to you like 3 times in the last 2-3 days. It's like how could my life not be as fulfilled as it is at this very moment in time?
It warms my heart to hear you say that, Eric. And I have to say, this is a very special occasion. This is the 3rd show we've recorded in 2 weeks. And I think Bowling Evolved fans might be falling over because even though we don't have the website anymore currently, we are putting out more content that they've heard in a long, long time. So that's got to be a positive, right?
Well, for the 6 or 7 people who want to listen to this, I think it's going to be really exciting if we can just get them to listen. Maybe we can get them to listen. I don't know. Maybe they'll show up and listen or whatever. But as many shows as we're doing, I'm going to have, I want to raise. Instead of getting nothing, I want like $1 or something. You owe me $1. I need $1.
I will buy you.
Just $1 or maybe $2, and I can buy a Happy Meal or something.
I'll make you.
Next time you got to start giving it up.
I will buy you the best darn 99-cent cheeseburger at McDonald's money can buy. I guarantee it.
And why do I think that's exactly? Forget about a steak dinner. I'm going to get a cheeseburger, but that's okay. All right, that's fine.
Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a great show lined up for you tonight. Last week we had Paula Vidal talking about the new women's tour that's coming together, which is fantastic. If you have not heard that show yet, I highly recommend you do check it out. But this week's guest is just as good, and we're going to jump right into it. He is the president of IGrind Bowling. He has made a huge impact on the bowling world, especially over these last 6-7 months. Honestly, I don't know anywhere you can go, be it professional bowling, amateur bowling, his work in autism awareness, and everything in between that does not revolve around how great IGrind Bowling has been. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce the one and only Gradie Merritt-Foster. Gradie, thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Gradie, thanks for joining us. It's fantastic. I've been looking forward to speaking to you along with Dustin. And buckle in, get ready, because it's coming.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, let's jump right into it. Now, IGrind Bowling, the catchphrase is a revolutionary attitude about bowling, and I have to say, from what I've seen, IGrind is definitely a revolution in bowling. Bowling Evolved has always kind of been about bowling yesterday, bowling today, and bowling tomorrow, and IGrind seems to follow, or we follow you either which way, in that same mentality. Tell us a little bit about IGrind Bowling, how it got started, and what you're trying to do with bowling in general.
Well, my partners out here in Chicago, Brian Gunn and Stephen Alford, it was more of a forum on Facebook. You know, people can go and post their scores, get tips on coaching, so on and so forth. Call people out, trash talking, just good stuff, good healthy stuff for the sport of bowling in Chicago. And I came along. I was getting coached by Brian Gunn and TP, Terrell Peterson, because I'd recently joined the PBA, and I was not very good. So I needed to learn something. So Brian's the best out here, so I went to him. And I learned about Facebook, and I got on it and got on their iGrind page and started seeing what was going on while I was on tour and learning, and it all fell into place. I asked Brian if I could take the iGrind name and go crazy with it, because the bowling world's kind of boring. It's been the same, from what I remember. I bowled in the league when I was 7, 8, and 9, and it was exactly the same when I was 7, 8, and 9 as it is now. So I just wanted to do some things, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do something. And then I learned about prize funds and, how things work. If for example, if bowlers outside of they get sponsors outside of the professional world, there's a certain somebody that takes a cut of that sponsorship. And I didn't agree with it. And I didn't agree with how bowlers are perceived. They're looked at as completely blue collar compared to other sports that compete in the same format fashion, like tennis, golf, those things. So I wanted to do something, so I started an autism foundation. My son is autistic, and still didn't know what I was going to do. And started having tournaments and partnering up with cancer foundations. And in the time all this was happening, Brian Gunn lost his mother to cancer, and I lost my father to cancer. So it started getting a little more than just bowling. It became kind of personal, but we still wanted to do the bowling. You know, Brian Gunn got his card, Terrell Peterson got his card, Kevin Coleman got his card. You know, we all wanted to be out there, with the exception of me, because I can't bowl like them. I'm just kind of good at, I'm good at talking and sending emails and stuff like that. I cannot throw a bowling ball. So and while this happened, words got out. We really weren't advertising or doing anything. We were just trying to have tournaments. I think I wanted T-shirts made at the beginning. And then people just started calling, like, we really like what you're doing, and things started snowballing, and it is what it is now.
Well, I have to say, I mean, you've definitely taken the bowling world by storm. You've put together some amazing prize funds for the PBA. Obviously, the news that just broke with the Women's Bowling Association, with them having basically a women's pro tour again after 10 years, is just incredible. How do you relate the success and the feedback you've been getting? What does it mean to you to mean so much to so many bowlers?
Well, it's overwhelming, that's for sure. Like I said, I just wanted to have some T-shirts made for Brian Gunn and have him go out there, because I believed in him, and I still do. He will win, that's for sure. But that's all I wanted to do, and I started hearing all these things, and it went crazy. I started having tournaments, and they didn't work out. Regardless of the prize fund, you know, I guess one of my tournaments was referred to as a super regional, and a lot of stuff goes into these tournaments. They're just, anyone who's bowled our tournaments knows we don't just have a tournament. You don't just show up and bowl. You know, we try to give away cars. All the proceeds from our tournaments go to some sort of local foundation. We try to give back. These bowlers know they come to bowl a tournament, they're helping people out more so than just themselves. You know, so it's fun. I just had problems with my first two, and I learned that you asked about feedback. The feedback was it was weird. You know, some of it was very positive, but then there was also a lot of negative feedback from people who didn't even take part in the event. You know, and that was pretty shocking. I thought that was comical. But I started thinking about the women and thinking they have nothing to bowl. They haven't had anything to bowl forever. They understand the importance of taking care of a sponsor. Let me tell you something that's shocking. We had everybody knows what happened with Josh and Amy Blanchard. So a lot of people don't know, same thing happened to me. It's one of my tattoos on my arm. I had a daughter who passed away 24 minutes after she was born. So I heard what happened. I wanted to help them out. Gave out 3 days, 2 nights, I think, to Vegas for $10, raffle tickets. Take a guess at how many people, I don't want to pinpoint people, take a guess at how many people within the professional bowling world supported and bought these raffle tickets.
I wouldn't even be able to venture a guess.
One person, and he happened to win. Was Todd Book. He bought quite a few tickets. he did, but I mean, I was getting bombarded with calls like, do this, move the date so I can be there. I have to be in Thailand, or move the date to here because I have a ball clinic I have to be at. But then when you organize something to help somebody who just went through something that I hope nobody has to go through, you organize something like that for $10 and nobody wants to help. To me, it wasn't even, I didn't even have to go through it this time, but that was like a slap in the face. I said, how dare you people ask me to do this, and that, and you can't even help one of your friends right there. You know, that wasn't cool. So I got kind of turned off with, you know, everybody constantly asking, constantly wanting this, constantly wanting that. but then I give an opportunity for people to give back, which is change, and nobody wanted to go through. So that kind of pushed me away from men's events.
Well, that's sad to hear, and I mean, obviously it was a big tragedy. But of course, you have found some different niches now, and obviously, I can't stress this enough. iGrind has, at least from what you read, I mean, you can't open up Facebook anymore and not read something about iGrind, which I think is good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, that is a wonderful thing to see, and I know from my perspective, and I'm sure Eric feels the same way, you've done a lot of great things, and I think bowlers are now starting to realize how great these things really are and that they have to start supporting.
Yeah, you know what? Thank you. It's awesome. Like I said, it's fun. It just comes from me wanting to be around bowling and me wanting to learn. All of my children bowl, so whatever I learn out on tour, I just come home and teach my kids. Like my oldest son just made his high school team, so I enjoy being out there and being, whether it's a tournament we have or like the World Series of Bowling I just came from. I had an awesome time out there. I like the environment. I love being around the bowlers. It's a good group of people. And every time I hear something, I'm like, let's have an event for it. If I hear something bad that's going on, okay, let's do something about it. I don't like to sit back and be like, well, that sucks. Better luck next time. That's not going to solve any problems.
You mean there's bowler apathy? I've never seen that in my entire life. No, I'm just kidding.
I love the sport that much. When my kids get older, I want them to, I want them to be able to have more things in the sport than are going on right now. And everybody tries hard. I'm not trying to say, ooh, I came along, nobody's doing anything, let me try this. I'm just trying to say, I'd like to help the people that are currently trying to build this sport because I love it that much. My children love it. It could be doing a lot better than it is right now. So let's do it. That simple.
So let's move ahead a little bit and talk a little bit about your relationships with the industry in general. We all know that you've been involved with the PBA regional system. You've been involved with several of the major companies. Now, we have talked a little bit off the air, and that's going to be our special treat because our segment at the end of the night, which is our controversy of the week, which we are going to be talking about the PBA, which I'm sure you have many, many fun things to talk about with the PBA.
Yeah, I have some stories.
But let's talk about some of the other interests that you've had. Who's some of the other companies you've worked with so far, and what kind of feedback have you received from them?
KR, started working with KR. They make our bags. We have some outstanding bags. They're durable. It's ridiculous. Our bags are amazing. They'll be available to pro shops through Ace Mitchell within the next 3 weeks. So I started working with them. They believed in what we believe in. Let's help the industry through helping people outside of the bowling world, and let's bring in a global. Let's help globally as far as special needs, people with cancer. Let's help anything that we can help outside of the bowling world instead of just helping ourselves. And Tony Mendiola just heard about it and he's been 150% supportive of it since. And he's outstanding. They're the whole organization over there. They believe in us and what we stand for. So that's one of them. Ebonite International. Without them, I don't think we'd be doing much of what we're doing. We have a ball program coming out called Balls with a Cause. And each ball that we come out with, and they're not just plastic balls. These are modern day bowling balls, entry level, mid performance, high performance balls. One of them's coming out next Tuesday called the Survivor. $2 from the sale each one of the balls goes to a local cancer organization. As well as every ball that we have is named in part to some sort of disability that we all deal with, and we'll be giving back $2 from the sale of every ball to a different foundation. The one in particular for the Survivor is a cancer organization that doesn't deal with so much trying to cure cancer. They try to deal with helping families that are affected by people with terminal cancer. So, for example, say your mother was getting ready to pass away and you may not have the proper accommodations or what have you. They make it happen for you. They give you transportation if you have to be in the clinicals or in the hospital every day. Finances, if you've lost your job, they pay your bills. They're 100% funded by the community. They get nothing from the state or the government. So that's where the sales from the Ball of the Survivor are going to. So that came from Ebonite, which is, they've believed in us 200%. It's amazing. Bugsy Kelly and Randy Schickert over there, they like what we wanted to do and put everything behind it to make it happen. So got a pretty good relationship with them, needless to say.
I do want to mention to our listeners that if you do want to check out more on iGrind, please go to IGrindBowling.com. Once again, that's IGrindBowling.com. I know they have a bunch of news and information up there. And, of course, I'm sure, Erica, how often have you opened up Facebook and saw a story on iGrind or people talking about what they've been doing?
Oh, yeah, all the time. Yeah, and it's amazing how popular and how strong it has become. And my question, even though in part it's been answered, I think the $1 million question, or I should say the $1.6 million question is, the women are now going to have a tour because of the way the men have acted in response to all the events that have happened in the last so many months, and that seems to be a benefit to help women's bowling, which obviously the women haven't had a tour in 10 years, and for them to have a semblance of a tour for them is fantastic, of course, because they've been in the dark ages for 10 years. And I always thought it was such a shame when women's bowling basically disappeared, because I always personally enjoyed watching the women bowl on TV, and I think a lot of people can relate to women bowlers because a lot of them, they don't throw with two hands. They're more stylish. It just looks more like what people can do, and I think people can relate to it better, to be honest with you. So that being said,
it's more fun. It's more fundamental bowling. Everybody can relate to fundamental.
Correct.
A lot of the men.
Right. No.
Yeah, the men are so strong. Yeah, I love watching women bowling. But yeah, let me clarify something quickly. I didn't do the women simply based off of the negative responses I got from the men. Like I said, all the ones who participated, which is the list is way too long for me to even list, but they know who they are. They were fine. They were great. They were, it was the ones who didn't bowl. And then my inability to work with another organization who runs predominantly men tournaments on the professional level. That's why I went on into the women's. Not so much because of the men bowlers.
Right.
But
I think it's great. I think, and obviously, if women bowlers, it's still bowling, whether it's women's bowling or men's bowling. You're trying to push and move the sport forward that has been having nothing but trouble, and it's only gotten worse across the board. So when anytime somebody comes along and does something in a positive way, whether it's for the men or for the women or just for the sport in general, you have to tip your hat and say thank you very much for trying to keep this thing alive, because and I know it's barely alive. It's barely doing its thing. It's nowhere near what it used to be. And to bring maybe the ladies tour back, but then maybe in a different way, that's nothing but a bonus. And with somebody like yourself, obviously, I think you'll do a great job with it. And you've got passion, you've got heart, you've got a lot of ambition, desire. I think you'll do the right thing for it. And then when you have somebody like Paula Vidad, who's been the driving force really in women's bowling the last 2-3 years, trying to give it a little bit of something, put the two together. It should be great. It should be fantastic. And like I said, I've got nothing but she's the right person. She's the right person to head it. She just needs somebody to help, with the finances. And like I said, 1.6 million is a lot of good reasons to be happy.
Yeah, no, you know what she needs? She needs about 6 secretaries. She's like me. She's a mad scientist when it comes down to this bowling game, and
Yeah.
she doesn't need any help. She's amazing. We had a talk. Her, myself, and Liz Johnson, Kevin Coleman, Terrell Peterson met out in Las Vegas and put this all together. And since that was a week ago, and since then she's come up with logos, which I currently have at my graphic designer getting done, and she doesn't need any help. she doesn't know it. She's amazing. She could do this all on her own. It just so happens that we came along, and yeah, the 1.6 million, that's not just a one-time let's go. That's every year. I've made it a goal for myself to do this every year for at least the next 5 years. And the 1.6 is on a low end, because there's so many things that'll be going on within the tournaments, like cars, obviously. We'll have different shenanigans going on, opportunities to win $250,000 for shooting certain scores, just ridiculous things that haven't gone on before.
Now, I have, like I said, I do have another question, and like I said, I mean, maybe there's a simple answer to this. How are you able to finance? How are you able to provide this kind of a financial backing for the women, or be it for anybody else?
The first couple tournaments, I funded myself. The women's tournaments will be partially funded by me. And I have a few sponsors that I will be releasing their info in a couple days that share similar goals that I do. So it's working on ethics and morals. It's not hard to get people to come together for the common cause to make things better. You know, it goes so much deeper than a women's tour. In these cities that we go to, we'll be going to homeless shelters, and not just going there saying hi, like, hey, we're professional bowlers, hope you get better. No, we'll be going there, making donations. The proceeds from anything that goes on with any of these events will be going to local charities. Whatever's going on in that town, the people bring to my attention, that's where the money's going. If we sell an arm sleeve, the money's going to a charity. I'm not in this to make money off of tournaments. I make money other ways, you know, and which are obviously 100% legal. It's been brought to my attention that a couple people think that I'm a drug dealer, which is the farthest thing from the truth. I've never been a drug dealer. Yeah, it's pretty shocking to me too. But yeah, no, that we're not in this to make money. We're in this to change lives and change bowling. So yeah, it goes a lot deeper than bowling for me, and that's why I get excited, because I get to travel. I hop in my little RV, and I told Paul I'll come take scores. You know, just because I'm the president doesn't mean anything. You know, I work 20 hours a day on this, so I have no problem going and taking scores, doing whatever she needs so she can compete. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's trying to help change people's lives.
So you're not a drug dealer, which to me is disappointing, because we've never had a drug dealer on the show, right, Dustin?
Actually, you know, it's funny. I was actually thinking about last comment, and Eric, I'm sure you know where I'm going with this. I mentioned last week. I said, you know, with the commercialization of marijuana these days, maybe that could be bowling's new product placement.
There you go. See, that's it. Breaking new ground. That's it. So you gotta smoke a little dope. There you go. No, because I guess I kind of see what your vision is. I kind of see what you're trying to do. It's just amazing that, you know, obviously it should be very interesting. The women, when it went away 10 years ago, I didn't think it was going to come back, but it's funny how it sounds like it's going to come back, at least for next year, and maybe the 3, 4, or 5 years after that, which is just really amazing how, you know, one door closes, and it closed 10 years ago, and now it took 10 years for another door to open, and this is a very, very big door.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. You know, if you look at the collegiate level, and I think the bowling on maybe in our age bracket is obviously declined, but the high school and the collegiate level these kids are going crazy. They're good. You know, there's some good kid bowlers out there. And the women, like the men, you know, they bowl collegiately and they can go and pretty much do what they want, get their job in their profession, bowl, whatever they want to do, they can do it. Women bowl collegiately, and when they graduate, there's nothing. You know, you get the Queens, you know, the U.S. Open for women's, maybe. You know, they don't have a lot out there, so they go and they dive off into the professional world and just kind of leave the bowling alone, and that sucks. You know, I've played soccer my entire life, tore up my knees, tore my ACL, MCL. I can't play ever again, and that's not by choice. So that's not fun. So I know what these girls feel like. So, you know, it's once again something else that's self-explanatory. It gives them something to bowl. Low entry fees, very low entry fees for very, very, very large prize funds. Very big change. You know, Liz Johnson is very excited about the fact that we have something worked out where after they become a member of the organization and bowl so many tournaments, they're eligible for health insurance. You know, that's something that's never been done in the bowling world before. If you're a member for after 2 years, you're eligible for a 401k. You know, what happens to a lot of the men bowlers now when they're done bowling? There's nothing for after bowling. Well, there is now. So it just changes, you know. So
I'm literally flabbergasted. I mean,
no,
and definitely in a positive way. I mean, what amazes me is that, you know, these are things that we as bowlers, Eric's generation even more so than mine, but it's just you talk about constantly and you wish were coming about. You're actually doing them. And I mean, I can tell you right now, I'm almost speechless because these are all things that I think bowling has needed, and finally it's coming to fruition.
That's awesome. I mean, I wish I would have known about all this stuff sooner. Could have started on this years ago. But unfortunately, it was all brought to my attention 7 months ago. So it's been working hard for the last 7 months, and it's fun, you know, and it can happen for men's bowling too. You know, going back to the first thing that you said about it's a revolutionary attitude. That's all it is. It's attitude. People have to change their attitudes. I'll give you a good example. Do you ever go walking through the grocery store and somebody comes up next to you and says, the PBA in bowling sucks? No, it never happens. No one is going to talk to you about bowling in the grocery store. But you can go to your local bowling alley and bowl league, and you can hear everybody talking about how bad bowling is and bashing the PBA and things like that. Bowlers do a good job at downing the sport on their own. You know, it's not people outside of the sport that do it. It's us. You know, so how about the Bears game today? Tons of bad calls today. So there's hundreds of thousands of fans talking about how bad the refs were. That's the NFL. They have a very large fan base, so people have their opinions. Bowling has a very small fan base in comparison to NBA, NFL. So we're the ones who talk about it. You know, the bowlers go bowl national events, don't like it, come home, bowl league, talk bad about it. Their friends hear it, don't know what they're talking about it, and relay the bad messages. So we destroy the sport on our own. So it's an attitude. Everybody's attitude has to change. Because if it doesn't, it's not going to succeed, and it will die, flat out. Anything like that. Let's talk about AIDS in the 80s. Using condoms when you had sex wasn't the hot thing until AIDS popped out, and everybody talked about it like it was horrible. Ooh, you can die. It is horrible. So people started buying condoms. It's an attitude change. You have to change your attitude if you want something to live on. And if you don't change your attitude, it's going to die. And no matter what I do or any other large corporations that are trying to help the sport, no matter what anybody does, it's not going to help it.
Well,
so everyone's attitude has to change.
It's interesting because when Chris Peters decided to take over the PBA when it was dying back in 2000, and they worked a deal out to bring them in, and the people from Microsoft and all that, they talked, the things that they said were very positive, and they were like the savior for bowling, or at least men's professional bowling, and everybody looked at them as a savior coming in at the last minute to help keep this thing going and redo it and package it and do it all new and exciting. And you know what? The guys, we were all excited and it sounded fantastic. And they went from a non-profit organization, they took it into a for-profit organization. And then little by little, as you know, as time went on, things changed. And that high that was felt by all the guys, myself included, after a while it started dissipating and it got lower and lower. And the next thing you know, you look at what they have now, which I don't consider it a tour because they don't travel the way they used to, and they don't bully bowling in the United States. If you want to make a living, you basically have to go overseas. It has changed dramatically. It's not what it used to be. And I just find it interesting. Now, what you're going to do with the women is there's some similarity to what happened to the men back in the day, but for some reason, after listening to you and by the way you're discussing it, I just feel like it's going to succeed. Whereas when it was done on the men's side, it sounded great, but I always felt that it was it didn't have a lot of substance. Like that, maybe it ain't gonna last. It sounds good, but for some reason, with the way you're doing this and the way it's coming across to me, if I was a woman bowler, I would be thrilled to death because it really sounds like you're gonna go take this down a different road, and it sounds like it's going to be a very positive road, and it's nowhere near the road that we went down about 13 years ago out on the men's tour.
Well, yeah, that's where things started going wrong, is when somebody got in their mind to start making money off of the bowlers. That's where everything went wrong. Back in the day, there were a bunch of old guys who loved the sport. You know, they wanted to keep it alive. As soon as they turn it to for-profit, and a couple guys want to start making money off of it, it looked good at first. It looked real good at first, until someone lost a lot of money.
Yeah, because they pumped a lot of money. They as you know, they pumped Chris Peters, and then they pumped a lot of money into it. Well, they had the money. They were very, very wealthy people, but they pumped a lot of their money into it, so to speak. It ran its course. And
yeah, that's money they're never gonna get back.
No,
they'll never see that money again.
No,
and I mean oh boy, you can't. That organization was awesome until it was changed for people to start making money off of it. That tournaments aren't. I mean, it's not the PGA. You know, the PGA has 100 people like me that don't even participate in the events, you know, that pump money into there. The PBA is a little different, you know, so there's not as much money to be moved around. Now you have a couple people that make a lot more money than any bowler on tour does. That's not helpful for the cause to get money in the bowlers' pockets so they can survive. It's kind of a touchy subject. I know why. I know what the problem is. A lot of people know what the problem is. But some people like to do things certain ways. Some people like to do things other ways. And like I said, the easiest way to put it is when there's no one trying to profit from an event, that would be very fruitful. And when I say that, I mean for the bowlers. Somebody said to me, and they know who they are, I referred to one of my tournaments as being successful. And they said, well, it depends on how you define success. How much money did you make off of it? I didn't. Actually, the event in question cost me $37,000, but it was very successful. A lot of people benefited from it. A couple different foundations got thousands of dollars from it. A couple bowlers went home very, very happy. It was amazing, you know. So it depends on what you define as success. If success is still in your pockets and there's still a group of people still struggling, then no, I guess my events aren't successful. But if you define it as, you know, as something that's growing and maturing, and you know, people are having fun and it was worthwhile, and a group of people benefited from it, then hell yeah, everything I do is going to be successful, if that's how you look at it.
Do you consider yourself a philanthropist as opposed to a businessman?
I refer to myself as a Christian. I don't, without the Lord, none of this is possible. I've never taken a business class in my life. And I just learned what the word philanthropy means about 5 months ago from Brian Gunn. So I wouldn't consider myself either one of those.
Okay.
I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian who I like to help, and I like to have fun. I like to travel. I'm different. A lot of people say I'm crazy, but I'm just a normal person who likes bowling. Try to have events close to my house, bring my kids. I like the sport, man. That's it. I wouldn't say I'm either, actually, because I'm certainly not making money off of tournaments. So I'd say, to answer your question, I'm an event planner.
Okay.
Interesting.
I think that's fair enough, because, like I said, it's true. Most people who get involved in these things, they're trying to make money. People who run tournaments, they're trying to make some money, or unless they're they just love the sport, they love the game. And if they're going to spend some money, they don't really care. But most of the time, people who get involved with stuff like this, I'm always curious, why do they want to do it? Because, as you know, bowling it's not what it used to be. There's not the sponsors out there that we used to have. And maybe someone like yourself can rejuvenate all that, but do it in a different way and create sponsors that we've never had, because all the sponsors that we used to have, they're long gone, and they're decided to put their money and dollars into something else, whether it be auto racing, golf, tennis, whatever it is. And bowling has really gone the other way. So if somebody comes along like yourself, and they're willing to, and they really love bowling and they want to get involved, and there's money that they can put into it, I always find that amazing, because, like you said, it's not what people talk about in the grocery stores. The people, they don't even talk. Bowling is not. It's a recreation. It's something they do with their kids. It's birthday parties. It's fun. They don't know about competitive bowling. They very rarely probably watch it on TV, because all of it's taped anyways, and they show it months later, which of course I can't stand. But I understand why. But I understand. But hold on.
Hold on 1 second. That answers your question right there on the sponsorships. Would you sponsor an event that was going to be taped, shown 3 months later, against the same time slots as the AFC, NFC playoffs, right before All-Star break for basketball and hockey, the very beginning of NASCAR and the golf season? Would you spend a lot of money to sponsor that event when you had to go against that, when the demographics that watch our sport is the same that watch all the other sports I just named? Would you do it?
No.
There you
go. There's your point, and I get it, and I understand the reason why they're saving costs. They want to film all the shows in one place, and I get it. I mean, I understand.
Now, hold on. There's more to it. Now, would you sponsor an event that was in the same predicament as what we just talked about if it was a tax write-off?
Of course.
There you go. You just answered. That's the $1 million question right there.
Interesting.
Well, like I said, maybe enough women bowlers out there were behind everyone's back. They've been praying, and all these years, and their savior, in the name of you, has finally come, and they're going to rescue them. Maybe you're that guy. You're the Jesus Christ of women bowling. I don't know. Maybe that's what this has come down to, because
Oh man.
Hey, you know what they say? The Lord works in mysterious ways. And for some reason, he's decided to do his work through you. And here we are. And you've decided to bless the women, and that's your choice, and that's great. And I just hope that they turn around and do the things that you want them to do to make it successful, and they don't treat it the wrong way. I hope they do all the right things, is what I'm saying.
Oh man, I've gotten countless emails this week from women I don't even know, teachers, therapists, everybody that are bowlers that They're just inspired by what's going on. They can't wait to get out there and bowl. And aside from that, also offered any assistance that I may need, and any. So I do a lot of events off the lanes as well. So I mean, that was very touching. That's what I'm talking about. You know, it's not. They weren't just like, okay, there's an event. When can we sign up for it? How much is the prize fund? Can we get paid? You know, none of those questions came into play. It was, this is anything you guys need. I'd like all the time. That's touching. That, you know, these women immediately heard about it and reached out like, I want to help. I want to be part of this. Let's go. That's how it should be done. You know, not just in bowling, just in life. You see somebody that needs help, help them. If you hear about somebody talking, you know, this person needs this, and you have the opportunity to help them out, help them. You know, it's just being a good person. It's being a Christian. That's what it's about. When it's like, ooh, I'm going to have them throw a tournament and make a bunch of money off of it, that's not helping. That's taking advantage. That's taking advantage of a struggling industry is what it is. So I'll
tell you what, Gradie, I'll tell you what, to me personally, you think you do it, you say it, you do it the way it should be. You're 100% correct. And I could not ever see you sitting down with the PBA, and I would think you guys are on two separate planets when it comes to talking about stuff like this. You would start with a divorce before you'd even attempt a marriage, because I can't even fathom you guys even sitting down in the same building, because the philosophy is so different. And I love the PBA because that's what I did for so many years, and I always loved the opportunity that was given to me to be out there to compete back in, I think, was its greatest times. Now, it's still trying to go at this point, but what you're doing, I think, is fantastic, and especially the way you're attempting to do it. And if the women are the benefactor of it, so be it. I think that's great, because in general, if it works well in that, what you're trying to do with them, it will help the sport and game of bowling all across. It will give those people a chance, the ones who bowl collegiate, the women, of course. It will give them the opportunity to have something to look forward to, that there is something to strive to, because right now there's nothing. You know, once they're done with their college career, they don't really have any place to go, because you can't really go to the men's tour, because there are a lot of great women bowlers, but it is still difficult and challenging for them to compete with the men. It's just the way it is. That's just how sports is in general. So for them to have a place to go to, albeit 12 tournaments next year, or you know, I mean, who says how this thing's going to grow? Nobody knows. It sounds like it's going to just grow by leaps and bounds, that it may really be something special in a few years, especially getting, you know, with all the media that's going to come around, I believe, and all the social media that's going to be talking about this. It just sounds such a win-win positive situation. I can't see it failing, to be honest with you.
Absolutely not. And I have to say, you know, on behalf of Bowling Evolved and, you know, everything we represent, you know, if there's ever anything we can do, I'm sure Eric feels the same way. You know, we support what IGrind Bowling is doing, and we support the women's bowling, and anything we can do, I'd like to offer our services. Believe me, it seems like a great opportunity and a way to help people and give something back.
That's amazing, man. I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. So yeah, we'll definitely.
Like I said, I personally think it's, you know, I mean, I think it's great that there's actually a breath of fresh air that has finally come into a room that's been nothing but bad all across the board in every aspect. Every time you try to find something positive, there's always 10 things negative right behind it. And you will see, and I'm sure you'll know that, you know, bowlers in general, I feel most of the time, it's a very negative situation. And I don't know if it's because of bowlers always want respect. They always feel that they need respect. They always feel that there's never enough money. They always try to compare themselves to golf, and golf is like apples and oranges. You know, I don't know what it is. You're going to be in that negative environment, but you obviously being a good Christian, being very Christian-like and looking at things in that light, I think it's going to help you and to weave through it. And obviously, to me, sounds like do a fantastic job. And like Dustin said, whatever we can do on our little itsy bitsy tiny small minuscule little podcast, whatever we can do to help you. And who knows, maybe with a little bit of stuff on your side, our little show can become could be a speaking point for you guys and help you out down the road.
I'd love that. In defense of the bowlers out there who think they deserve the respect, man, I understand. A lot of these guys, like a lot of the older guys, I mean, how can you not give Wes Malott respect? How can you not give Walter Ray respect? How are these guys not making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year? They are the best bowlers on this planet. If I were them, I feel disrespected too. Some of the guys that have worked so hard, Sean Rash, for example, he could have went on and be a pitcher. He could have went and played baseball, and he would have been outstanding at it. But he chose bowling. That's where his heart is. He's put a lifetime's worth of dedication into the sport. And now to get there and struggle, I'd be pissed off. I'd be really mad. So I can understand why they feel that way. Ryan Simonelli, all that dude does is bowl. All he does is practice. He does yard work. He's working on his approach while he's raking leaves. It's his lifetime's, it's art. It's what he spent 23 years of his life doing. So for there not to be something there, all that they've done for the sport, and for there not to be more money, and it's not just the PBA. I won't even get into what I think about ball contracts, but it is $1 billion industry, and the guys aren't. It's an attitude. It's an attitude. It all has to change. Everything from the players, the bowlers, even though they have a right to feel wronged, they need to understand that that's something that's out of their hands. They can't change it. So accept it. It goes with the serenity prayer. Accept it. You can't change that. Accept it or do something else. And if you're going to accept it, let your attitude change with it, and everything else will change around it.
Well, that's a very good point, and I think that's actually a very good segue into our final topic of the night, which we introduced last week, which is the controversy of the week, is where we look at a controversial subject in bowling and share our thoughts on it last week, which was the blue oil, which Eric and I had a field day with. That was quite a lot of fun. This week was actually recommended to somebody that has asked to remain anonymous, but I think it's a very interesting topic, and Gradie, we kind of touched base on it a little bit off the air. The PBA, is it still good for bowling? That is a question that a lot of people seem to be asking themselves off and on. Is the PBA still helping bowling, and is it good what the PBA is doing? Now, I'm going to open this up. I'm sure, obviously, we're three people with three very different perspectives on bowling, very different backgrounds. But Gradie, since you're the guest on the show, we'll go ahead and start with you. At this time, which I know, I'm sure we could talk for hours about this, but from your perspective, is the PBA still helping bowling?
From my perspective, absolutely not. Would the NFL cancel the Super Bowl? And I know everybody's going to be, the PBA doesn't run the USBC or the PBA doesn't run the US Open. Yeah, I know that. I'm very well aware of that. But it should, that's a good time for the PBA to step in and save the day. Pay for it. Why not? Do I think it's good for bowling? No. If you ask, I'd say maybe 220 professional bowlers right now, they'll say the same thing right now because they're not on one of those PBA teams. These guys have nothing to bowl. Where are you going to go to see your favorite bowler at? I'm a huge Tom Nuss fan. I think that dude is awesome. Where am I going to go see him bowl at next year? So, for a sport to be good, you have to have a tier one. You have to have the upper echelon for the people like me, the house bowlers, people like my kids for them to watch. Who are they going to watch? Who are they going to identify with out there? You know, they have nobody to identify with because everything's been condensed into whatever I haven't even looked into the schedule, so I don't want to comment on it because I don't really know what it is, but all I know is I've had hundreds of emails talking about put on men's events. We have nothing to bowl next year. So, no, I don't see any. I work very closely with the local youth bowling. I don't see any donations. I don't see the PBA requiring bowlers to go do camps like you may see the football players do. You go to Chicago, you see Bulls, Blackhawks, Bulls players doing things all over the city. When the PBA goes to town, there's a pro-am, but other than that, you know what? Walter Ray, for my tournament in Detroit, Walter Ray went up the night before and just showed up at bowling alleys and started going during league, just showed up and started going down there and giving people lessons during league. That's outstanding. That's one of the coolest things I've ever heard a bowler do. You know, that's what should be going on. That's getting out there and interacting, you know. But a lot of the bowlers won't do that because they have jobs, man. It's bad enough they got to take time off so they can go do a tournament. So, you know, they don't have the time to get out there and do that stuff. But those are the things that should be required by players to do. The NFL requires players to do that. Every NFL team has a foundation they work closely with. The NFL themselves have several foundations, one of which we work with. Nothing like that goes on. So no, for the sport of bowling, I would have to say no. For those who are, that's what I'll say. No, I don't think it's good for the sport at all. I think there's individuals within the PBA that are outstanding for the sport of bowling. The Webbers, all three of those guys, I think are outstanding for the sport of bowling. Rich Weber has done things for kids that nobody will ever know about, and nobody needs to know about. Those guys are amazing men. They've gone above and beyond. Personally, I've been involved with a situation personally with Rich Weber where he has changed a kid's life, and it's unbelievable what those guys, yes. If those guys were in charge of the PBA, it would be great. It would be a completely different organization.
Interesting.
So yes, the Weber brothers, I think they're great for the sport, and they'll continue to be great for the sport. They've done great things for the sport. Yeah, there just needs to be some changes. If there were changes, yes, it'd be great for the sport. Currently, no.
Okay.
I'd say no.
Okay, Eric, how about same question to you?
I don't think there's enough time in the day to begin to just try to dissect this whole thing and go through it. I don't think we could stay awake that long, and I don't know where to begin because, like I said, and of course you know, I was a part of it back in the day, but that was back in the day, and it's definitely not that day anymore. And so many things have changed. So many things are different. Heck, I don't even think they really have pro-ams anymore. You mentioned pro-ams. When they go now, where they go, like when they were here in Vegas, there was no pro-am. I mean, they just don't. It's become so saturated and so like either nobody wants to bowl in the pro-am, people don't care anymore. They can get bowling balls online. It's not that special to get a ball from the pro, to get the bowling balls and to bowl with the pros. It's not that big a deal. The luster is gone.
It has to be done. It has to be done right. I had the regional I had in Tinley Park. I had, although some of the pros, I had how about this? I had a pro-am at 10 o'clock in the morning for the Chicago Autism Academy. And it was for them, but a lot of people came. It was for only special needs people. We had 93 special needs children show up and bowl with the pros, and it was amazing. It was awesome. But we had bowlers who were assigned to come that didn't call, didn't show up, just didn't do it. It's the attitude. And my adult pro-am at night sold out. My kid actually won it. He won about $1,000 in a smart account, and that was full. It's about how it's ran. Now Kevin Bostrom did a tournament out in Michigan, I don't know, maybe a month and a half ago, and he tried really hard. Tom Hess had one in Des Moines. It was a good pro-am. It's all about who organizes it and what you do. But I know these guys, that's one thing I'll defend them on. These guys try to do it, but some of the bowlers think that they're too good for it. I had two bowlers in Chicago, when my tournament was in Chicago, that just didn't show up for the pro-am. They were scheduled to be there. They just didn't come. Like, you live here. You don't have to travel anywhere. And that was for my special needs. That was for my special needs pro-am. So after you told me you'd be here, you had something better to do than put a smile on a little autistic child's face that's been planning on doing this for 2 weeks. It's an attitude change.
Grady, I understand. When, back in the day when we had pro-ams every week, we would have our regular pro-ams. Guys would sign up for early pro-ams. Sometimes we'd have Special Olympic pro-ams. We would do all kinds of things. And, it was part of your job. It was part of the job of being a professional bowler. You may not have always wanted to do it, but you did it because it was your responsibility, and you had to give something back. People were paying you to bowl. People were coming to watch you bowl. I mean, it was an honor. But that, again, I'm talking 80s, 90s. And
how was the attendance back there?
Oh,
back in the 80s,
humongous.
what is the attendance? Really?
The pro-ams were off. The pro-ams were, especially the ones in the Midwest and around the Great Lakes, they were lined up out the door. They had thousands and thousands of pro-am bowlers. It was unbelievable.
Oh, wow.
It was something that you would. Now, granted, that's a different time, and I think today's economy and the saturation of bowling balls, buying them online, and all these things, I think that has hurt tremendously, and people just don't have the money to spend that they used to have. At least I believe that, because of today's times. But because I had a chance to go through that whole thing, I always thought the pro-ams were very cool. It was a practice, you bowl, you meet people. I met a lot of great people, friends that I've had for 20 years that I met in the pro-ams. And it's gone now, and it's been gone for a long time. And it's a shame, because it always was part of the process. You had your pro-ams, then you had the tournament, then you had a TV show. It was just and there were a lot of positives that came out of it, especially the young kids. I always enjoyed bowling the junior pro-ams more than I enjoyed bowling the adult pro-ams, because the kids just loved it. And kids are they don't draw any conclusions. They're there to have fun. Whereas adults, they've already, maybe they like this guy or they don't like that guy. Hell, the kids they like everybody. You're there to have fun with them. And it was always fun to bowl those. And that's really been gone for almost 10 years, to be honest with you. It's been gone. I mean, I left the tour in 06, and even back then it was basically fading away, the pro-ams, and here we are, 7 years later. So that whole thing is, and honestly, I think they feel that they can't make money off it anymore, so they don't do it. So now you're back in that, can we make money off of it? See, that's not the Christian way, as you would say, but that's unfortunately what seems to govern and run this whole situation. So again, somebody to come in on that white horse is definitely needed, and it sounds like you're the guy. And by whether you want to be the guy or not, it looks like you're that guy. And I hope it works. I really do. I hope it does.
What's really interesting to me, and obviously we're kind of getting off topic of but not that I mind. I love talking about the pro-ams too. The PBA, I tend to agree that it's just so much different, and it's great that they're still professional bowling, period. Don't get me wrong, but I also agree that I think they're looking at things the wrong way. Eric, I know you remember when I did the little thing here in Laughlin when they invited me to do their little pro-am with the junior program out here. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you remember that. Yeah. I still consider my time, I've done like 3 of those with them now, and mind you, I'm by no means an Eric Forkel or a Walter Ray Williams or a national touring pro, but to be able to give back and, to have that opportunity to bowl with the kids, and it was really great. The association went ahead and got bowling pins for everyone, the bowling center, and they basically got all the local scratch bowlers and local pros to come down and bowl with the kids, and just to see the reaction on their faces of these guys that are able to, have fun on the lanes, help them out. We signed the autographs, we did the whole thing, and it was so appreciated. And it wasn't about money, it wasn't about anything other than to give these kids an opportunity to see what bowling could be. And I really feel at this point, and we've talked about this on the show before, and I've written about this many times, the one thing bowling is missing is the people that are willing to give back to help generate bowlers in the next generation. I think there's such an apathy about bowling these days that if it's not about me, they don't care. And I think that's a big issue. I'm not saying everyone, mind you, but I think a lot, especially high competition bowlers. And Eric, I know you've seen it, be it on the local level or on the national level. I know I've seen it, and Gradie, I'm sure you've seen it. Bowlers that, if it's not about the money or it's not about them, they don't want anything to do with it.
All right. Well, let me say this. Let me say this. And again, if you look at the guys now, let's say, who can actually make a living throwing a bowling ball, they are far few in between. Now, there are some, because there's always some. But if you were to turn back the clock to, say, 15, 20 years ago, you had a bunch of guys who could actually make a living throwing a bowling ball. You had a bunch of guys making well over $100,000 a year. Now, granted, back at that time, I remember a lot of us would go, God, you got to be one of the top guys to make any money out here. But when you look at it now, you would beg for 15, 20 years ago because a lot of guys could actually make a living throwing a bowling ball, bowling 25 to 35 tournaments a year in the United States, not having to travel across the world and your expenses and this and that. But you're in a situation now where it's so unrealistic to try and make a living throwing a bowling ball. And the talent level, as you know and as you've watched, is through the ceiling. The guys are great. The talent level now is as high as it's ever been. And the prize funds and the money are as low, really, for what you're working against. It just doesn't match. So that's the sad part. So when you have children, if you have kids, and you say, why would you want them to put a bowling ball in their hand? Why would you want them to aspire to be a professional bowler, whether it's men or women? What future does that hold for you? You better play golf, or you better go to college, or get your education. I mean, why would anybody push their children into bowling? Because there's no place to go with it. And it was challenging 15, 20 years ago, and it's far worse now. That's the biggest issue. And because you have to have something to strive for. I always felt, when I was a kid, I watched the bowling, on ABC. I always would watch the TV show. That was what you wanted to be. You had something to look forward to. And I think whether you're kids, they want to be, they have pros to look up to. Well, in all the sports, because if you took the professionals out of all the other sports, well, then the sports would not be as popular, because that's what makes the sports popular, in my opinion. People want to aspire to be someone. Well, if you eliminate professional men's bowling and you eliminate professional women's bowling, what do you have to aspire to do? It just turns into a fun recreational game that you do. You have a few beers with your buddies and you have a good times at the bowling center. But how would you want to make a career out of it? So that, to me, has always been the issue, and I think it's only gotten worse. It has only gotten more difficult. So, again, when somebody like yourself comes along and wants to create an environment that's positive, that's great, women can go out there and actually make a living throwing a bowling ball, it's just unheard of. It's unheard of. It really is. It is. I think you've got the white horse and you're riding on it, and here you come. Here I come to save the day. I mean, because the hour is I mean, there is no one in this industry would say things are great, we're doing well, league bowling is up, open play is up, tournament, everything is down. It's down in every aspect. So it is amazing when someone like yourself, just like I thought it was amazing when Chris Peters and them came along at that time, it's amazing that someone was going to come along and do something like this. But again, it's being done for a different reason. I already can tell that you're doing this for completely different reasons that maybe they have done it, and maybe this is what it's going to take. Maybe this is it.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome. I found there's a disgusting truth in the bowling world about it said the bowlers 10, 15 years ago would make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. There's still bowlers out there that make that kind of money, and
there are some, yes,
because they don't have their card. Look at some. Adam Barta, Pharrell Williams, Go Hagen, even Anthony Pepe before he got his card. Those guys right there make tall cash on the amateur circuit. They address it as a business. They do it the proper way. I know a lot of bowlers here in Chicago that make a ton of money, but then go out and blow it. Because they look at it as, like you said, the recreational drinking beer. That's how they look at it.
I understand.
They fail to realize that they bowl in 5 leagues and they're coming home with $500-$600 every night. You could be putting that money away. That's a lot of money. That adds up.
Right. But my whole thing was, why do you want your kids to become? Why do you want them to bowl for a living or bowl? What pushes them? What pushes them to want to become a professional bowler as opposed to a doctor, a lawyer, a professional ball player, and other sports where they can make millions and millions of dollars? Why do Joe average guy? I'm saying, what does it take? What is it going to take to make that happen?
Right now, I know on the youth level right now, most kids bowl simply just because their parents do. Mm-hmm. They don't see it on TV, so it's not like they have an identification mode or anything, So a lot of kids do it from the parent. It's money. You gotta, unfortunately, that's how it is. People are driven by money. Mm-hmm. But I said we're going to attach a lot of other things to it. A lot of other meaning behind it. And,
well, that's great. Again, like
I said, I do believe women are the leaders of this universe. They're our mothers. They birth us. So start from there and go.
Do I have to tell my wife this, or do I got to remain quiet on
that? That message is approved by Gradie Merritt-Foster.
Nice. Okay, I could say that Gradie said that women are the backbone of society, and they always say a happy wife is a happy life. Is that how it goes?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. All right. Oh. Fair enough.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think on that note, we have gone quite long on this show, but with good reason. This has been a fantastic experience. Before we close out, I do want to remind everyone we will have information on the Laughlin Cup going up sometime this week, including the finalized date. I want to say thank you very much to Gradie Merritt-Foster. Gradie, thank you so much for joining us on the show. This has been very eye-opening, and hopefully our listeners have a better understanding of yourself and the IGrind philosophy.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm looking forward to our future endeavors.
Gradie, I would like to say thank you for being on our show, and it's been very eye-opening, and it kind of warms the heart a little bit, to say the least, that there's someone like yourself out there, a good Christian, willing to dive into a cesspool of, how can I say this, of just one mess after another, just to dive in. I hope you got a good snorkel. Hope you got some good fins and you could swim through all the you-know-what. And maybe you'll come out smelling like a rose, and maybe you'll do something that other people have tried and it just has not, because of one reason after another, has not gone the way it should. And maybe by the way you're going to do it, you'll bring proper respect and wealth and knowledge back to the game of or the sport of bowling, and it'll be good for everybody, and myself included.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, it's definitely well deserved. But ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Gradie Merritt-Foster, we want to thank him again for being on the show. For Eric Forkel, I've been Dustin J. Markowitz. Have a great night.
Good night.